You know that in the early days of the faith in Persia, the believers were persecuted because they accepted the Bab and his teachings. They were often ridiculed and beaten by those who blindly followed their power-hungry leaders. On one such occasion, a believer was so badly beaten that he could barely drag himself to the outskirts of the town where, exhausted, he fell asleep. While sleeping, he had a dream about a great personage. Though he had never seen or met this personage before, he was sure that he was the promised one foretold by the Bab. In this dream, this holy being addressed him with these words: "Despite the injuries heaped upon you, we extend our protection that you might remain alive. Be not grieved and come to us in Baghdad." But the man replied, "But I have no money, nor am I able to stand on my feet." The personage replied, "You surely rely upon God." "I have always relied upon God," was the man's answer. At that moment, the man awoke, and to his great surprise, he saw a group of travelers that had set up camp on the banks of a nearby river. Just then, he spotted someone emerge from one of the tents and make his way over to him. He was asked to come to the camp, which he accepted to do, though still weak from his injuries. Entering this tent, he found a distinguished gentleman who asked him to be seated, and who then explained that during the night he too had a dream in which a holy man had given him responsibility to care for someone whose face and appearance were exactly like this believer's. He had been told that he should show this person the utmost hospitality and invite him to accompany him on his travels to Karbala. "So, you are my guest as far as Karbala," the distinguished man announced, and soon they set off on their way. But when the group of travelers reached Baghdad, the believer informed his distinguished host, "This is where we part." He thanked him for his invitation to continue on to Karbala, but explained that he too had had a dream from the same blessed personage. And this personage, he said, had invited him to come to Baghdad, and so he bade his host farewell as they parted company. Not knowing where to look for the promised one, the believer went immediately in search of the Bab's followers in the city. At that time, Baha'u'llah had not yet declared his mission to the generality of the believers, and so they remained unaware of his great station. But can you imagine then the joy this believer felt when he saw Baha'u'llah and recognized him as the holy personage of his dream? His entire being was filled with unspeakable gratitude and happiness. Having been willing to accept death in the path of the cause of God, he had been given a new life and had been led by the hand of the Almighty directly into the presence of the beloved of all hearts.